So again, welcome everyone. Today we are talking about our ARM mobile app. So we're going to provide a basic introduction of what it is and what it offers and how the pricing works. And then we'll transition into a demonstration of the app and the connection, how you bring it into ARM and connect it to your ARM on your main computer. So I will start here. Trying to switch to another slides, but it's on the wrong screen as usual. Let me close this one down. And I want to put the slideshow on this monitor instead. Let's see if this works. There we go. All right. So our ARM mobile here is simply a note-taking application for trial assessments. And it's just a web application, mobile app, so it's compatible with basically any iOS or Android device. And the main purpose, the main goal of this app is to extend ARM software to the field. And so it basically can function as an offline connection to an ARM trial file. So we'll see as we talk through the workflow that you can use this app offline. You don't need an active internet connection when you're in the field. As you can imagine, may be hard to acquire that out in the middle of nowhere. So the actual recording of the information can be done offline, while we'll still utilize the cloud and internet at the appropriate times to be able to communicate with ARM to send and transfer data. And so hopefully the goal here is to ensure consistency across note takers. The consistency tools that we have in ARM, maybe we can bring some of those to the field and across maybe multiple people who are taking notes. Functions like plot photos are really handy, and with this you can, ARM will actually rename and catalog those images right with the trial file back in the office. So really smooth flow for taking plot photos. And last but not least, reviewing data immediately after you take the assessment is really the best way to maximize your assessment quality. We'll show some of those features later on here. So our development of this app, we really want to focus on the core principles of quality research. And so first, entering data immediately when you're at the trial location. Consistency in assessments, that really has to extend across the different dates and times that you're taking notes, across the different people taking the notes, and across locations. So the standardization features that we'll talk about within ARM Mobile can really help with that. The only way to really ensure data integrity is reviewing the data while you're still at the trial site. And being able to use a visualization of that data is definitely really a most efficient way to catch any mistakes or any irregularities, strange things that may have occurred. A visualization makes that process much faster and easier to spot things. And then data transfer really should occur in a professional manner. So not just transcribing from paper to a computer days later, and not copy and pasted from file to file. So we'll see how seamlessly it will move, the data will move back and forth here with the ARM Mobile. So to kind of take a look at the workflow here with the mobile app, the first component we'll talk about is the base information from your ARM software running on your PC. So primarily this is the favorites lists formerly called personal lists for ARM, all the ones kind of related to data entry. So things like your standard evaluations, the assessed by, which really becomes the list of ARM mobile users, the crops and pests that you commonly use, and all of the assessment related lists, like your part rated and measurement units, things like that. So this information is copied and saved to a cloud storage service. So we support like Dropbox, OneDrive, and Google Drive, all work pretty well with this. And so on that PC, you would have one of those cloud services running. And so we copy the information from the ARM that's running into a folder we call base info within that cloud service. That way, ARM Mobile can download this base information during the installation and setup of the app on your phone or a mobile device. The next step is the individual trial files. So the trial definition is what's sent to the cloud, not the entire ARM trial file. So this definition has the SE definitions list, any assessment columns that don't have any data, attachments, and some site details as well. So all of that is copied into the trial def folder in the cloud, which again can be imported then into ARM Mobile. After you use the mobile app to record data, take pictures, review the assessments, we export the data to the cloud once internet is available. ARM then automatically imports that data into the trial file on the PC when that trial is opened. We'll kind of show this whole workflow as it pertains and relates to ARM here a little later. A couple of just quick screenshots. Again, we'll show the whole flow through. So I'll go kind of quick through this, but kind of the process for taking notes with ARM Mobile. You first import trial definitions from the cloud storage. So that's the first step there at the top is importing trials. You do need internet at that point in time. Then when you're in the field, you can select the trials to rate in the note-taking session you're about to start. Then you can select or create the assessment columns to actually record the data. Then when you're recording the data, that this screen pops up, there's functions for taking pictures, typing in a comment. You can also even exclude that value from the analysis right there with those buttons at the bottom. You can review the assessment with the heat map for catching any issues and looking over the assessment before you leave the site. And then finally, export the data back to the cloud, which again, you would do once internet access is obtained again. So we went quick again, so we can show the whole process kind of live here and then talk through it in a little more detail. So to just get a look at the licensing involved, there's really two components, a connection and a data plan. So the electronic data collector add-in, we call it EDC, that really is the connection between the ARM software on your computer and data collection apps like ARM Mobile. So, at a technical level, it's basically enabling your ARM to export your trial definitions and that base information, which then can be used by ARM Mobile. This EDC also includes the tablet data collector add-in. And so if you have an active TDCX that you've used in the past, you get a free upgrade to this EDC. So you may already have this portion if you currently have that tablet data collector, the TDCX, add-in. The second step is to purchase a data plan. So the data points that are exported from ARM Mobile are counted anonymously. So GDM doesn't see any of the data, but it's simply just counting how many data points get brought in through that connection. And so then that is tallied and billed per company invoice. So you only need one data plan per group. And as a result, the ARM mobile app itself is totally free. And so you can use it on as many devices as you'd like. There's no activation or registration or anything like that. You just hop on and can use the app, which we'll see in a little bit, but it's not in the App Store. It's actually just a URL that you can go to through your browser, either Safari or Chrome. But we wanted to make that the use of the mobile app in some senses are free. It doesn't matter how many people are using it. Anyone out there in the field that'll be taking notes can just pull up their phone or bring a mobile device of some sort and use the app. And really on our licensing side, it's just a matter of how much is it used, and licensing that connection side is where we are at. So that way there's hopefully no idea of limitations on who and should use it or anything like that. And so, in summary, hopefully this is kind of a lightweight option to help modernize your data collection. We don't foresee that ARM Mobile is a replacement to the tablet data collector that's been out there. If you're familiar with that before, that's really still going to be kind of that top shelf option that brings the entire ARM out to the field. But realizing that having a Windows device, some Windows tablet is a lot of upkeep, which is one of the reasons I think tablet data collector sometimes is hard to get into. And so ARM Mobile is kind of sliding in between there, hopefully to provide a powerful option, but not quite as high of an investment as maybe the tablet data collector is initially, since everyone's got a smartphone or iPad sitting in the office or something like that, where these mobile devices are available to use and just to pick up and download the app and off you go. Is really the big picture of where this fits into with our other data collection options. All right, so that's my elevator pitch, I guess, on the general usage of the app. So not seeing any questions. Let me toggle over and we'll kind of show the process. And what I'm going to do is start in my ARM. So my ARM has that connection, that EDC license that we talked about. So it within my ARM has the ability to send my information out to the cloud. And so to kind of initialize that connection, under the Tools menu, we have the Connect Electronic Data Collector. And this wizard has a few options in here. If you've used the rating shell, that's found in here. That doesn't specifically relate to the licensing we talked about. That the Excel is free of charge. Same thing with the Harvest Master Mirrors connection. So those are not. It's not required to use this ARM Mobile licensing for either of those, but it just fit well in this wizard here. But what I do want to show is connecting to the ARM mobile app. And so when I choose that option, I have a third step here to kind of set up our connection with ARM mobile. So to start, I need to have, in my case, I'll be using Dropbox, but if you use OneDrive or Google Drive, any of those options will work. as long as they are running on your computer. So what ARM needs is a folder path on your computer that we can find and create an ARM mobile folder for. So what will happen when I select this path, ARM will create an ARM mobile folder with these 3 subfolders. So it'll handle that whole dealing with what files go where. It'll be pretty easy setup just to find the location where we want to kind of start and put all these files into. And so we kind of talked about each of these in the slides, but we'll put the base info, that's all the personal lists that are from our ARM. And to see specifically which ones we're talking about, there's a button here to edit our mobile lists. So that will bring up this dialog here to kind of give us an introduction on specifically what is going into that base info folder. And so we have a list of the different ARM validation lists that will be copied out to that Dropbox, so we can use it in the mobile app. And so the first few, you'll see a couple of these are required. So these 4, if we had an empty item or an empty list here with no items in there, then there would be an error. And this green bar would actually be red to tell us that we absolutely need something in some of these lists here. Otherwise, the mobile app isn't going to work for us. So the assessed by, that is the list, basically becomes the list of users in the ARM mobile app. We'll see that right when we first kind of install and get logged into the mobile app. That's like one of the first things we select is the assessed by. And then different units for the different parameters you may or may not use within the mobile app. Those are all required, as well as ARM Mobile will really struggle if there's no options to choose from. The rest of these are optional, but it is a very good practice in general. If you aren't already using favorites lists within your ARM program, they become really invaluable with ARM Mobile. As of course, something like the disease codes, you can just about imagine how long it might take in your phone to scroll through all the different EPO diseases to find the one you're looking for. So it's really not practical for us to install the full dictionary of all the items. So instead, we're relying on your favorites list to be the source within the mobile app. And so to pop one of these lists up, you just can click the edit list and it will show your favorites list. In this case, the list of pests. And I can go to display all, and then I have the huge list of all the different diseases in this case. And you can filter if you have specific ones you want to use. You can filter within a column and search for a specific keyword. And once you find the one you want, the little plus button here will add that item to your favorites list. So again, the list you see here, the favorites, will be what you see in the mobile app. So a couple of questions here. The first one, can you add and change which ones are the required headers? So right here, when we're talking about required, it's really for the mobile app just to kind of function. So just as part of the ARM Mobile, the app itself is going to be pretty cranky if we don't fill in these first 4 lists. We need to have something in those lists. As far as required headers, kind of more thinking about when we're in a trial and it's required to fill in certain information, that would be more within a trial and creating study rules. And in general, those rules don't come through in the mobile app. So as you're taking in data, of course, you have the spots for your assessments. But if you do have a header field that's required, there really isn't a validation process within the mobile app. So that would all kind of land in the ARM trial. When the data comes back in would be the best time then to run validation and see what required headers, what information is required to fill in. So that's a great point, and hopefully a good distinction then of the two sides of that coin. Yep. So here it's just a matter of what we need to do to really initialize the app, and not so much an individual trial that we might be dealing with. Then the other question there was about Google Drive. So one step before this, where we were looking at the location, using Google Drive and cannot see a file hierarchy. I guess if I close this here, I do also have Google Drive on my device. And for me, at least, if I shrink my Dropbox, I think I can access my Google Drive somewhere. Maybe it's under this PC. Yeah, there I have my Google Drive. So I'm not sure if you just need to expand that file hierarchy to be able to see something. Otherwise, I do know I've seen a couple of times where if you don't see anything in this list and it just says desktop, there is an issue. Ironically, it's actually because of OneDrive, but I think nowadays Windows has OneDrive enabled for everybody. There's an issue out there where OneDrive causes these general browse for folder dialogues to not work. So if you see nothing in your list other than the word desktop, that might be the problem. And if so, shoot us an email and I can give you instructions on how to fix that. Kind of a weird quirk that's supposed to be getting fixed from Microsoft in a Windows update, but it wouldn't shock me if it was still floating around a little bit. Oh, sorry, here, let me close. So can you expand the My Drive? So here I went under this PC, I have my Google Drive and then My Drive. So I do have some folders in there. My only thought would be if for some reason you don't have folders yet, you could click on My Drive and make a new folder and then call it, ARM Mobile or something like that. Perhaps that's what's needed. That'd be one reason. Like this folder has no subfolders within it, so there's no way to expand it, whereas this one does. So, I'm not sure if that's the reason, perhaps. If you're still having troubles, though, definitely reach out to us, and I could always connect up and remote in and see what might be going wrong. But the key is to make sure you have that cloud storage running on your computer that has ARM. So that way we'll be able to sync and communicate with the cloud with the ARM. Okay, so that I think pretty well covers the favorites lists. If you do kind of set this up the first time and then you're in the mobile app and you realize, oh, I want to update my lists. I needed one of these, ended up I didn't think I needed, or there were some items you don't have. You can always return back to this screen just like I did here. Connect the EDC, edit your mobile lists. Or if you're in a trial, it's the same list. So if you're in a trial setting up an assessment and you add something to your rating type list like this, for sure that'll end up as part of this ARM mobile. You just want to edit mobile list and do an update and close. And that'll make sure to refresh that base info folder that's in this case going to be in my Dropbox. So that is the kind of the initial setup and considering those favorites lists that you have. Oops. All right, so we'll define this folder. ARM is going to then set up our subfolders for us. Then the next step is the trial definitions. So we need to export the trials that we want to be able to download and work on in the mobile app. So ARM will open up the study list to select trials that we're going to push out to the ARM mobile. So I'm just going to send all 4 of them out there. And again, this is not sending the literal trial file, but instead is creating a separate file that we call the trial definition. And so it really is going to unlock a lot of possibilities for us, a lot of flexibility in how we can take notes. So I chose 4 trials here so I can see kind of the success for each of those trials. Some of them, like this fungicide one, had assessment columns that did not have data in them. So those got exported. So 1 through 4, this has 1 through 4. Here it looks like we had some that were already maybe taking some data, or if it's a calculated column. So if I have data input and then I have a column right next to it to, perform an Abbott's calculation or, whatever it might be, those don't get sent to ARM Mobile, but when the data comes back in to your ARM, of course, that calculation then can be run on the data you recorded. And I think this first one here, the AUDPC, didn't have any assessment headers defined, so it won't have any columns kind of preloaded for us in the app. All right, so that's it on the ARM side of the initial setup. We now have our lists for the base info out in our Dropbox folder. We also have those definitions for the certain trials that we chose to export. So now we can switch over to our mobile device. And for today's presentation, I've got an iPhone here, and I've just connected through TeamViewer, so I can share my screen. Hopefully that works well enough. The only downside is I'm using my finger, so I'll try to say out loud what I'm going to do before I actually do it. But then it is a little more, I think, realistic than if I'm using the browser on my computer and using the mouse. You just kind of lose a few things there, but I'll try to point with my mouse and then use my finger to actually move the screen here. But the first step here actually that I've already done is I am in Safari. So as I mentioned, this app is not in the Play Store or the Apple Store. Both of those businesses like to try to collect the money as part of using the app, and it made a lot more sense to instead just go through the internet. And so this is a web application. So the URL here is just where you would browse to, mobile.gdmdata.com/ I can get it to move over, ARM Mobile, nope, it doesn't want to let me, ARM Mobile V7 is what it ends up being. Maybe there we go, is where we are at. And so when we go to that URL, it will start to download the app. And so our very initial setup here on this welcome page, just a couple of things to set up the first time we're in the app. And so, of course, we need to start with our sync method to choose which cloud we are using. I'm using Dropbox today. Subsample sequencing. If we have time, we'll show an example with subsamples, just depending on which order you want to do a subsample. Whether you'll repeat the assessment for all 3, 5 subsamples, and then move to the next assessment column, or vice versa. And I'll just do by subsample number this time. And then your distance calculations to expect whether you're doing the metric or imperial. And then I'll click next. Now we need to log in to our cloud storage drive. On the first step, I just click on import. And I'm guessing I've already logged into Dropbox. Typically, Dropbox would come up and ask me to log in. Let's see if it's, it of course never works when we are demoing. Yep, that's what I get for, let me just try going again. Sometimes it gets confused. Naturally. Let's close this tab and try it again. It should be logging into Dropbox for me, but I've typed in my credentials before, and sometimes it just gets a little confused because, of course, my device, I don't go out and actually take notes. So I demonstrate it once, put it down. 2 weeks later, I'll pick it up to try to demo it, and then it's a little confused because the login maybe gets old. It is just not happy at all. Okay, well, just in case this happened, I do have my browser here handy, so I guess we'll go to plan 2 here. Same thing, just this is on my computer instead of the phone. I have done that initial setup already. Let me see if I can at least make this a little more narrow, kind of imitate what it would look like on the phone. All right. And actually, I will go into settings and help because this is almost the same thing, almost the same screen as we were before, that initial setup here where we chose our Dropbox and our distance calculations. Then the next part is to import base information. And hopefully this will be a little happier for me when I click on import. As I said, the very first time Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever will pop up and just ask you to log in. And once you log in with your account, then typically it kind of closes and comes back to that same screen. Kind of nice if it would have like an indication of, hey, like you successfully logged in or something, but then you just kind of repeat and say import once more. And then you actually will be logged in, so you'll be able to browse. And what we're wanting to do is browse to that folder. So here in that folder I created within ARM, I can go into that ARM mobile folder and then select the entire base info directory. So when I choose that folder, my mobile app can download all of those lists from my ARM here onto the mobile device. You could see there was a green data imported successfully. So we'll have those lists available to us on this device. And then our export location will do something similar. We need to select a folder for this device to save data to. And so you want to choose the trial assessment folder, because that's where ARM will look to pull in data when we're all done with this process. And so that will create a link to that folder within the Dropbox. And real quickly, kind of tied to this question here about the Google Drive, this dialog that comes up is specific, will look a little different depending on which option you chose. So Dropbox has a real nice interface. It's pretty easy to use. Unfortunately, Google Drive is a bit of a pain. And that's really the question here, is it's a really small window. It's hard to scroll. You can't see very much. And yeah, for whatever reason, it just shows you all of your folders. It doesn't really show that hierarchy. So yeah, unfortunately, that's totally out of our control, as it's just Google Drive. So, we're just kind of connecting to the Google Drive service or the Dropbox service. So we don't, unfortunately, have no control over that interface. And yeah, as you've seen, Google Drive is definitely the most frustrating interface of the three. I would say if you can just look through that list of folders to find the ARM mobile, I think I've noticed it seems to sort those folders by how recent you've either created or altered them. So hopefully if you've recently, updated that folder, or maybe make a new one so it's kind of recent and towards the top, maybe then you can find it. But yeah, the interface is a bit of a struggle with that Google Drive. But we're kind of stuck with it, unfortunately. So once you've done both of those, if we were actually doing the very, very introduction part, then there would be a next button, and that would take us to kind of the final initial configuration, which would be the assessed by. So that is the list that we had saw when we were editing our mobile list. So you can create a list of people that would be using the app. And that'll come in the header as the assessed by. And I've just got default names here. So I guess I'll be B Jenkins today for whatever that's worth. So that's the initial setup. If I weren't cheating here on my mobile app, they would have been on 3 separate pages, as we started to see there. But then once you're done and you select that assessed by, then it brings you to the home page, which would be this here. Actually, let me hide. I think I can hide this bookmarks bar there. It gives us just a little more height. All right, so we kind of talked through these steps here. So we'll go ahead and perform each of them in the app. So the first step is to import the trials. So we do need to have an internet connection here at this stage as well to download those trial definitions that we put out in the cloud. So I would open up the trial definition folder, and we will see those 4 trials that we had sent from our ARM out to Dropbox. And in general, you may as well select all of them while you've got the internet connection to download all those definitions, even if you maybe aren't going to use all of them today. So once we've downloaded some, then we can see we've got 4 of them locally here on this device. So now we could walk out to the field, whether or not we have internet, and we'll be able to use the app here. Because everything from here on out doesn't require a connection to the cloud because we've downloaded the definitions and we've downloaded our lists. So we aren't really actively using the internet here from this step on. So to begin our session, for whatever notes we're going to take, we can select the trials that we want to work on, that we're going to take notes for. And there's some different searching you can do on trial ID or PES code or your location, things like that. But here I've only got 4 trials, so it's pretty easy to find the ones we want. Maybe for today's sake, I'll show that we maybe have 2 different trials that I want to work on today. So I'll make those selections and say done. The next step then is to plan the assessments that we're going to record. So I have the list of both trials that I'm going to want to work on. So we'll click on this first one here. There's a few different options, but primarily we want to open the assessment manager. And so this shows us the assessment columns that I predefined within ARM. So you can see some more details if you just drop down, but we use the description or your SE description from ARM is kind of the primary title for the assessment that we'll refer to. But depending on what you filled in the header, you may see pest or crop information. There's the rating type or part rated, rating type, rating unit, how many subsamples, sample size, things like that are all available. If you didn't already have headers filled in, or maybe when you got out to the field, there's some pest that you maybe didn't expect to be taking notes on, but we need to, there is a plus sign here. So you aren't limited only to the assessments you've already filled into ARM. You can create a new assessment within the mobile app at any time. Few different ways to accomplish that. The best way would be to use a standard evaluation, or an SE. So if you click on that, there's really two different lists. We can see any SEs that were specifically attached to this one trial. So if you've used the SE definitions section in a protocol or a trial, that's where this list is coming from. So the sponsor or myself, when I set up this trial to start with, targeted specific SEs I'm going to use. And an SE is simply a saved list of that header description of what assessment to perform. So the current trial, these are linked to this current trial through that SE definitions, or under the All tab, I have my personal list of all the different SEs I've used. So in ARM, that's the SE name. If you look in that list, there's a favorites list there for all the different SEs you've used. So that's available as well. And that will create a new assessment column or multiple columns. These SEs could have several different assessments all together in one file. And that will create those columns so that way we can take notes according to that description that we've pre-saved. So a good time saver and really great for consistency as well. Also in that add, there is a copy column. So if I performed the same assessment a week ago, copy column will just show the different assessments already done in this trial that I can copy the description for to make a new column with that description and then start to take notes. And then finally, ad hoc, that's the worst one. That'll set you back a few minutes because it just creates a totally empty assessment and you have to hand fill in all the information. If I click on that, we'll show that you have to fill in a description, you have to have a rating unit, and you have to have number of subsamples in order to be able to use it at all later on. And then of course, all the other different information that you might want, you would either have to put in here in the app, or at the very worst, at least take the data, and then when you get back to ARM, you need to fill that all in. So it's there as your backup plan, but it will definitely be frustrating if you're stuck doing ad hoc. So we try to kind of push the use of SEs and taking advantage of some of that functionality to save you time here in the mobile app. All right, so here, let's just do this disease index and the phytotoxicity. Then I'm going to press the back button. And just to look real quick at some of the other information related to this one trial, there are some of those site details that come across. These are really just read only for us to see the basic kind of header information about the trial. We do have the contacts, so if I needed to get a hold of the study director, I can pull up their phone number or email or something like that. That's just being copied from the contacts portion of the trial. The pests, the crops, really basic treatment list, and the applications from the trial. Again, those are all just read only for us to look up, but there's really no interaction with recording any data about any of that. The walking path is the order that we go through our plots in the field, much like in ARM when you can set your assessment order. All right, try to get through this process here. I'll go a little quicker. So I'll click on the next trial to do kind of the same process with the next one. So we can select the assessments to perform here. I think this crop height has subsamples. Yep, this is 10 subsamples. So we can kind of demonstrate that option. So let's just do just that crop height for this trial. So we finished planning out the assessments for all the trials we'll work on now. If I go back, now we're ready to enter assessments. So we're going to perform our assessment entry. We're starting with our fungicide trial at plot 101. So we have the two different assessments we're going to perform. This first one is an index. So it's just a 1 to 4. So we have these buttons that are handy to just select and click on there and fill that in. These open-ended ones, when you click into the field, if I was on my phone, keyboard, the on-screen keyboard would pop up so we could type in a number. Of course, in my case, we had to abandon that so it knows I've got a keyboard attached to my computer. So it just is going to sit there. Now, if I move to the next plot, it's going to take us to plot 102. And I can do the same thing here, fill in our assessment. We have an option here to the right. There's a green circle here. This is to initiate the default values. So I've selected my 2, and maybe as I'm just kind of looking across my field, I know that most of these are going to be a 2 for whatever reason, or maybe it's all going to be 100 or 0, something like that, where I think most of this assessment is going to be that same value. I can fill in my default and click on that button, and this will then default for the next time, the next plot we go to, the default selection will be 2. And I could do the same thing here on my phytotoxicity. Maybe it's very clear, so 0. Oops. Click on that. So then when we move to the next plot, you can see that 2 is already kind of selected for us, and that 0 is kind of there for us. It's probably a little hard to see the 0, but definitely the 2 is in gray. So that's our default value. So if I'm on this plot 103 and it's exactly like the last one, I want to accept these defaults as the true value of the assessment, then I would click on the double arrow. And there's a little tool tip that first time you use it to say we're going to move to the next plot, and any defaults that we have will become real. So if I confirm, then now we're on to 104. If I go backwards to 103 just to see what just happened, that gray went to red. So we kind of stamped in that that is what I want, that 2 and that 0 is real. So if I move to 104, let's say for some reason I can't take plot 104 just yet, then I would use this single arrow. So I'm not accepting the 2 and the 0, but I'm skipping over this plot. And then I can perform, then I can do my assessment for 105. You can see it's pretty easy to type in and override those values if I need to. So just to take a look now, if I go back, 105 are those values I typed in. 104, we never confirmed the values. So when I go back, they're still empty. They're still in this mode here that they have not been confirmed yet. So that's kind of the purpose there. And if I do, yep, those defaults work. It is a 2 and a 0. I can use that double arrow. And so I'm just going to kind of use that a few times just to get a bunch of assessments through. Maybe I'll add some variety here as I'm going through, just so we have something interesting. A couple more functions before we get all the way through. The drop-down button here will show that option to exclude a plot, or to take a picture, or to have a comment. If I click on that comment there, then there's a text box that you can type in the comment information, whatever you might want to jot down related to this specific assessment value. And if my device would have worked, I would have taken a picture, but we'll have to skip over that today. Make it through the rest of these values. I think 400 is the last one. Yep, so now there is no more next. So we've reached kind of the last plot in this trial. But before I move to the next one, I want to do the assessment review. So the 3 dots here to the side gives us an option to view the assessment. And that's our plot map. Of course, I have a lot of default values, so it's not very exciting, but it takes the smallest value, puts it in white, and then the largest value in dark red. And any plots that we missed are black. So we can see we didn't fill in that last one. But this is a great way to catch any outliers, anything extreme. You can click on a particular plot to see its actual value. That also shows that treatment across the different replicates. So you can compare how consistent that treatment was. This arrow over will let us see that second assessment we did, the map of that. So it's really important for us to be able to look at that while you're in the field. So once you've finished the assessment, you can take a look and spot anything that makes no sense, a really large value, a really small value, and you can review it. If it says 100, well, maybe I meant to type in 10. Great, well, you can just go walk over back to that plot and confirm and make sure you get the right value entered. Or maybe it was a 50 instead of 10, but actually, no, it really is 50. There's something very odd, strange here in this plot. Now you can document, you can take a picture, write some notes, and spot that extreme situation that maybe just got lost in the shuffle. So being able to do that here, I think is very important and a big part of what ARM Mobile can bring. Real quick, that magnifying glass is a way to kind of hop through the field. So this shows the list of the order that we were going through them. But if we needed to skip over and go specifically look at a plot, in my case, I'm going to go to that 401 to be the last one. That's how you can kind of skip out of order if you need to. And so when you're on the last plot of a trial and you proceed to the next one, then there's an assessment summary. And here, if you already chose a pest or a crop, I'm just going to pick one here, then this is where you can fill in your stage information, your density, diameter, anything you'd want to record. Both of the pest and the crop. You first pick one, and then it'll fill in those values you can fill in. There is a question about getting a previous assessment as a gray standard, and currently, no. We've kind of heard that question a few times of somehow being able to reference a previous assessment to know what had occurred the last time. Maybe it's kind of a repeat. You're going to perform that same assessment every week or whatever. Right now, we don't have that functionality. So it is just focused on the current assessment you have. But yeah, there is that idea of maybe being able to know where we came from, what it was last week as a reference point. I think for some assessments, definitely very nice, a good example of something to be able to do. Other types of research or assessments, might be a little dangerous to have. So, one of those that we kind of have to be careful in adding. But definitely, there's some good use cases out there for something like that. All right, I'm running out of time, so we'll skip over the subsamples at the moment. Just to really quickly, this was our second trial, and I had one assessment, but you can see there's the different subsamples. So I have 10 different slots to type in the 10 different subsample values, and that's done for each plot, as you can see. I'm just going to skip over that though for now, since we're running low on time. This ARM will take me all the way home. real quick, after you're done with the assessments, completion dashboard gives just a real nice overview of the what was completed. So here we entered 20 out of 20 ratings. We can see an overall average of all the experimentals, the control or the untreated average. If you had any treatments marked as standard, you would have the average there, and that's for each assessment. So we can see I've done 20 out of 20 for each of those. So that's a good way to just double check before we get to the export process that we have filled in and recorded all the values that we plan to. So once you are done with that, if you don't have internet access, you can just close the app and put the device away and wait until you do have internet access. If you're back in the office, then in order to send that data that we recorded out to the internet. So then we would export assessments is that process. So it is a manual thing to do. So all this data we have been taking is on this local device until we come to this step. So we will export assessments, and we have those 2 assessments that were totally completed. And I can send those out to the cloud. So that's going to upload that data into our Dropbox. So now back in ARM, the Dropbox kind of running behind the scenes most likely has already updated and downloaded those files onto my computer. So if I perform our EDC connection and this time pull in trials from EDC, then I can choose the specific trial or I could select all of them. Either way, ARM will just check and see if there is any data related to any of these trials to pull in. And so it found those. It's checking each one of those trials. And of course, we only have one that we cared about, or 2. Actually, it looks like I've got a couple from previous days as well. But we had only really done the fungicide one, was the one we did today. So then if I open up the fungicide trial, we'll see that it just brings in those data that we recorded right into the assessment data. If we had pictures, I could kind of show that as well, but since our phone didn't want to cooperate, we didn't. But in theory, if I took a picture in the mobile app, it just brings up the camera. You take your picture, and then it includes it as an attachment. So when it gets downloaded here into ARM, it'll show up as an attachment. And so the actual image file then is transferred across through Dropbox or the cloud, and then gets saved onto your computer in the same folder as your trial. And we rename that image with your trial ID, plot number, things like that. All right, well, pushing it for time. I appreciate your patience as we work through some technical troubles. But hopefully the ARM Mobile, at least this gives you a glimpse into some of the possibilities. As I said, there's a lot of flexibility with this, a lot of different scenarios, just depending on how your group takes data currently. So we really encourage you to ask us questions. That usually we just start asking. Typically, actually, we turn questions around to you to say, well, how do you currently collect data? And then we can kind of describe how ARM Mobile or possibly the TDC would be a better fit for you. But I want to thank everyone for your time. As we're running a little long, feel free to reach out if you do have more questions for us. And hopefully we'll see you again at another session. Thanks, everybody.